should we skip or read aloud racial slurs in text from a long time ago, but that has been approved by the district to be read in the classroom? That is the question. And this story is very hot in the news right now, because we have a teacher who lost their job. They're reading To Kill a Mockingbird. This is a book written a long time ago, when the N word, it was thrown around quite a bit with the ER. And so the book is about a black man that has been accused of attacking a white woman. And so the black man is on trial. It's written from the standpoint of a little white girl. And like I said, the N word is used a lot. And so let me just read this post here, because I think there is this is a compelling case here. It's a compelling case here. There's a post by Puzzle-Headed Bobcat 90. Teacher fired for reading passage from To Kill a Mockingbird. A teacher, we'll call him Mr. M, from Washington, was fired because he read a passage from To Kill a Mockingbird after having an impromptu discussion with his high school students about whether to skip or read offensive words in literary works. He said they shouldn't skip the words, as we need to confront history, even if it's difficult. And I'll add too that it's the way the author intended. That was the way that I was trained coming up. And even as a teacher, it was just accepted. When you have these literary works, you take them as they are, because you're trying to go back in time during that period. And so if you were to edit it, perhaps you sacrifice a little something. That's it. Again, that's just the way. I wasn't even an English teacher, but that's what I learned, and I respected that coming up. His students asked him to read a passage that used the N-word slur, and he felt he needed to put up or shut up, as he felt students would not learn from someone who displays hypocrisy. And I like the way the person is summarizing that. I mean, because that was the situation this teacher was in. There's a change.org petition to reinstate him with over 1,800 people supporting him. If you read his statements about the situation, he makes excellent points about teaching critical thinking and that we need to learn from our history. What are your thoughts? I signed the petition. I think we are at a turning point, and we as a nation need to talk about our problematic history so we don't repeat it. And unfortunately, there miss a typo and can't correct it. But I think that there's a lot that we as teachers can learn from this situation. I'm assuming that the book was approved by the school board. Okay, it was approved by the school board, and so he was allowed to read it with his class. Okay, so that's and I think that is very important to keep in mind. But as a teacher, I emphasize on this channel that teachers are leaders, and as such, we have to be able to look around the corner. We have to check our blind spots. The decisions that we make, the effects. We have to consider how wide those effects of our decisions could possibly go. Now, I'm not saying you need to be scared about the things that you do, but what I mean is you need to be cognizant of. You need to count the cost of the decisions that you make. You're not just responsible for what goes on within your your four walls. What goes on within your four walls can escape your four walls and have other consequences. And I think that's a message that I really want to send to you. Sometimes things that go on within your four walls can escape your four walls, and they can have an effect on the school community as a whole. And you want to be careful. You want to be careful about that. Okay. You have a lot of autonomy in your classroom to do the things that you want to do and teach the way you want to teach. Yes. And that's good, but you don't want to do things that kind of compromise that. Now, so I told you at the beginning that I get where the teacher is coming from. He's making a great point. That's the way that I grew up. Let's have tough conversations about history so that we don't repeat it. Let's accept this literary work as it was intended, and then let's reflect as we go back and think about, hey, how did this make you feel? Can you believe that this person doesn't have respect for another human being, that they would just dismiss them like that? I mean, we do that at college campuses all the time, where we're getting in the weeds and having those tough conversations, even though they don't necessarily feel good, but they're making us feel these feelings, and that's what the author intended for it to be. But while I recognize that and I accept that, here's some things that Mr. M wasn't he didn't I think he made a mistake, and we need to learn from this. Okay, so this is Mr. M teaches in Washington State. Okay, Washington State. And we know, if you pay any attention to politics, Washington State is very, very blue, very liberal. And so if that's the situation, and unfortunately politics it's a part of what we do. Politics has seeped itself into our classrooms and how we do what we do, and a lot of instances. And so he should have been aware of that, because it makes a lot of good points about learning from history, critical thinking, but you're in a blue state. I don't know if there's any red areas in that state. So now you're in this situation where you might not have the support of your administration because of that. And that's just what it is. So you're in Washington State, you're a white man, and you're saying you're saying the N-word. Yes, you're reading out of the book, but you're saying the N-word. I mean, that's just not gonna work. It's just not gonna work. And you gotta know that. You gotta know that. And then also the other thing, it's not mentioned here, but the students, and I'm not sure what went. So the students were recording the conversation, right? They were recording the conversation about where when he felt he needed to put up or shut up, and not be someone who displayed hypocrisy. That's just a really tough situation, because you have to make a quick decision. What are you going to do in this situation? Your students, they're calling you out. They're saying, "Oh yeah, well, go ahead and read a passage." And while this is happening, students are recording him, and and of course that recording got out, and what do you know? Administration, they gave him a verbal warning, right? This is the story, the part that the poster left out. So the administration gave him a verbal warning, said, "Hey, don't do that." Okay, if that's the end of it, okay, lesson learned. We don't do that here. But then the teacher's contract wasn't renewed for next year. So that's the full story. And so Mr. M is assuming that because there was nothing else in his file, no discipline action against him, he's thinking, oh, it had to do with this. And it's quite possible that he was not renewed because he was on a recording reading the N word to his students. And you can only imagine the response that the class had when he read the N word. So it probably it's just not a good look. I wonder if there was a little bit of regret on his part after he said it. Um, because also it doesn't mention here, but there are some students who mentioned to him that they felt uncomfortable. And so yeah, there's the other mistake too. Like if your students are telling you they feel uncomfortable, how about we call a timeout here. Let's put a pause in this because I want to honor your feelings. Let me consider that. Like the students are giving you the opportunity to retreat and 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 spend a little bit more time thinking about it, because at the end of the day, you got bills to pay, man. You got bills to pay. This is not worth losing your job over. If that's like you're in a liberal area, uh, your students, you're a white man, and we're talking about reading the N word probably repeatedly throughout class. Like you got to count that cost. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. I understand the point that he's making, but this is not a college class. This is a high school class. Like there are people to answer to. There are stakeholders, community members. You just don't know. And you're in a blue area. You don't know if your administration is going to support you, and that's the other thing too. Go to your administration and say, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Just want to get an idea from you. What do you think about this?" Like those just so many lessons that we can learn from this to keep ourselves out of this situation, because there are schools out there where it is acceptable. Like this is you can read it. We're going to do this. We're going to push through this. I myself, it's different for me. I'm a black man. I've read some graphic material, from this time period. I remember Party Down by the Square by Ralph Ellison. I read it. I read it to my class. I didn't edit it because I wanted them to feel that. And that story is about the public lynching of a black man, and all the things that they did to him, and the things that the man who was being lynched, the things that he felt, the things that he said. It was so detailed. And I was able to take my students back there to that point and help them to see that. And um there was value in it, because out of that, then we were able to have conversations and really really learn that history, and I think it made an impact on them. But yeah, for Mr. M, and for those of you who may be in a similar situation, especially those of you who are white brothers and sisters in the profession, you've got to be more aware. You've got to be more aware of the decisions that you're making, especially as it relates to things like this. I I don't I doubt that he'll get his job back. This comment, lastly, I want to point out here. So I've never seen this, but this person says my district has firm rules against reading aloud slurs in canon text. So I'd likely be fired if I did the same. So I mean that's something that a lot of that schools may want to look at as well. Just putting taking the decision out of the teacher's hand and just saying no, we're not doing this because it's going to be possibly disruptive if we have a white person reading aloud a racial slur. So, um, I don't know. Things are changing. Things are changing, and um, you just can't do it. You just can't do it, especially given some of the other situations surrounding Mr. M's situation being in Washington. The kids have told him that they don't feel comfortable, and he doesn't know how administration would feel about it. And so, obviously, in this case, administration, he took a chance, and administration, they didn't like it. They didn't like it at all. So let's learn from this situation, and I want to hear from you. What do you think? What are your thoughts on this situation? Do you think he should get his job back, or do you think that perhaps he should have paid attention to the warning signs that were flashing? Let me hear from you in the comments section. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next update.